Hello and welcome to Gearrock Farms. In today's video, we're going to be giving you guys a bit of an equipment tour. We're going to go over the tractor lineup here to start with. This should make a pretty good video. I know a lot of you have requested this in the comments, so here it is. We'll give you some of the history and maybe cover a little bit of what they're used for. So I hope you guys enjoy the video.
So we'll start with the Farmall M, and this tractor I bought from my brother, which he bought off an auction, and he usually was in a situation where he'd buy these and fix them up, put loaders on them, or sell them to the hobbyists. But a really good motor on. This motor's kind of souped up a little bit, I think. We were gonna paint it, and one of my kids started the project, but something else came up. They didn't finish it, but so we just kind of stopped. But that's why the hood is. This is our smallest one, and we use it for raking. But right now that we got 8 tractors, so this one gets used like down here in this other shed to move equipment around. Narrow front, really handy that way. And for some reason, I don't know why, M's are usually pretty warm-blooded tractors. This one here is cold-blooded. It's just, it has to be warm out, or just, I don't know if it's something with the float in the carburetor or what's going on, but we added some weights. There's no fluid in the tires. I think it's, I don't know what the year of this one is. I actually got books on some of this. We can't even hardly read the numbers anymore, but I'm gonna guess somewhere in the 40s. The M's are made for quite a long time.
So if you guys want to see this restored, throw some comments down below. So what, my younger brother that started this project might finish it. So yeah. On to the 1066.
Now this one here, I bought off an auction when I still was working at home with my dad in 1989. It had only like 3,000 hours on it, and right now it's got 6,090 hours on it. So we brought it home, we started using it for lighter work, it was good, and then it spun I think one of the main bearings spun. I'm trying to remember back, but we did some checking on the cost of everything, and it was to overhaul this whole thing, and we checked the history on it. It sounds like it done the same thing before, and I think the farmer that had it didn't want to invest into it, so it kind of just patched it up. So what we did, there was a company in Springfield, Illinois that would rebuild these motors. You'd send the core in and they would grind the crank and the camshaft and then replace everything inside, and you'd basically come up with a brand new motor with a warranty on it. This 1066 came with a 414, and this is a 436 in here. So this is the motor they would put into the 1466s. So it's got 140 horse instead of like 120 horse. Anyway, it's been really good ever since. There hasn't been any problems. We use it for packing the pile mostly. In the summer, I put it on the feed mixer because it's kind of clumsy for other stuff. The cab, I could live without it. It was great for plowing the road before we had one of the other tractors to do that now. So then I have doors for it and stuff, but what we want to do, maybe one of the other brothers can do this one, where we're going to get this cab took off, we're going to buy fenders, and we might have to make steps in the battery holder and stuff, because the salvage yards don't really, they're not able to come across any used parts anymore, simply because everyone that's got these that wants to redo them is used them parts up. And then maybe put a canopy on it. And then the black stripe, they claim the black stripe, I think this is a 1974. 74 or 75. It's the last ones before the 86 series came out. And I think they're like the 1086 until right here is identical. Front end, everything the same, motor the same. It's the rear end is where they changed, and they came with the first soundproof cap. So anyway, this kind of a rattle box is basically just blocks you from the wind. And the wheels are full of water. It's my heaviest one, and we got dual sport for packing.
All right, so we're in our other shed. And I think my father, he'll talk a little bit about storing your equipment, not putting all your eggs in one basket.
You know, it gets below zero. We got the heated shop. So what happens is you think, well, we can put everything in there so it starts better and everything. But then you hear stories where you got all your main stuff all packed into one building, and if you had a fire or something, sometimes you've got other buildings. Maybe it's best not to have it all together. I mean, like if we for instance got 2 balers, we'll never store both balers in the same building. And you know, if we don't have to, it's and things like that. You know, it's better off split your stuff up. So now this here is a Super MTA, and if you look here, this isn't the original decal. I repainted this tractor back in 1984, and we could not find these decals. So this is what we did, but we only could find M and Super M, and I don't know why. Now you can find them again. This tractor was on the home farm where I grew up, and when my dad took over the farm in 1960, he bought the farm from my grandma and grandpa, lock, stock, and barrel, and they had 2 tractors. They had a Farmall M and a Farmall 200 that my grandpa had already with the farm. And as soon as my dad bought the farm, he found this on an auction. Now this is a 1954. They only made this tractor 1 year, this Super MTA, which is basically high-low range in there. So anyway, he brought this home, and my grandpa got very angry with him that, you know, he's spending his money, and, you know, how's he gonna pay for the farm and all these things, which is understandable. And he said that went on for a little while until Grandpa drove it. Then he started bragging about it with all his friends like it was the best thing in the world, which it's kind of like going from you know, a horse to a 4-wheel drive. I mean, it just, you know, you can only imagine. This tractor hauled all the manure. And there was a heat houser, a canvas cab, we call it, with a shield that went on here. I still have it yet, and I've used it here back before I had the other tractors. And this is the most warm-blooded tractor on this whole farm. So this thing's been sitting here now for a couple months. It's been below zero just about every morning here for the longest time. This one's never let me down. Just clearing her throat. Not too bad for as old as she is. Most people this age would never get out of bed that quick. Now right here, there's like some, I don't know if that's nickel or what they used. There must have been a crack in the block. And my dad bought it that way. And he claims he paid $800 for this tractor back in 1960. So you got a 54 model. I don't know if it was worth that much more new, maybe $1,200 new. So that's kind of a lot of money back then. And he was told that this tractor was in a shed that got tore apart by a tornado. And I don't know if maybe something, you know, a piece of wood or something hit that, or what that was from. But it absolutely had no effect on how this tractor operated. This one is the old faithful by far. I remember replacing part of the torque several times. There's some parts in there that go bad over time. Brakes. I don't never remember touching the motor ever. Starter, of course, that's just, and these are the last ones that came 6 volt. And this is switched over to 12 volt. So all that happens, it makes the starter zing a little faster and maybe wears it out faster too, but it does start quicker and better that way. What's different from an M or a Super M is this block in here. And there's what you call a torque amplifier in here, and that's what the TA stands for. And that was kind of high-low range. So when you pull this, you would slow it down, like when you want to turn around on the end of a field or something. But it would freewheel. The motor would not hold the tractor back. So on a hill someplace, you had to have this lever ahead. And that was always something to keep in mind. Now, if there was an hour meter on this tractor, I would have to guess that this tractor would probably have more hours than all 8 of our tractors put together. I mean, the drawbar here has been reinforced, and my brother was always a pretty big welder, but I remember growing up, this thing's been rebuilt maybe 6 or 7 times from the manure spreader wearing it down. And these side hill hitches, you know, very handy. Now that straight M that we were talking about, it's got one of these on too for moving machinery around. This is a real saver. far as just getting in places, narrow front and all that. She come with 14.9s, 38-inch rubber, and I don't know if they came at 13.6s and 14.9, I'm not sure. Definitely the good old faith. And this tractor is used for, I mean, we make hay with it and we pull loads home with it and stuff like that. I mean, it's not as heavy as the big ones, but it never fails us. Now the Oliver, you guys probably seen on other videos. I bought this tractor right after I came here. So I came here in 91. I bought this tractor in early 93. On an auction, I was bidding against a jockey. And my father-in-law was standing next to me, and he knew I needed something more of a tractor. I only had that 1066 in this MTA. So for haying, it would have sure made sense to have at least 3. I bid it up to $2,900. I let it go. The auction stopped. The guy came to me that bought it, and he asked me if I still wanted it. And he said for a couple hundred more, I think so, it's $3,100. I got this tractor home. And he sold a loader to me that I ended up getting rid of afterwards when we got the Bobcat and a better loader. But so I came back the next day to get this tractor, and an old fellow was there, and it was the brother to the guy. So it was an estate auction where the guy died, and his brother was telling me, he said, this tractor rolled over and killed that man. And I never knew that when I bought it. And I always wondered why the hood was bent up a little bit and all the other steel was pretty straight. And you see the air cleaner's a little bit bent, and they had to replace the steering column, and the fenders are off of 55. See, they made the 1650, and then the 55s are maybe a couple years newer, and they had this stripe on, and that's why that was. So they must have got bent up. And the story goes, it was really narrowed up, and the guy was raking hay, and he ended up pulling the rake up on top of the tractor when he turned around, and it rolled it over on top of him. So. But this one's been good. The motor's been very sound. Everything else I went through. So when I got all done after several years later, I used to bale all my hay, cut all my hay with this. I think I had like about $6,500 in the whole thing with new tires and everything, and rebuilt the hydraulics and brakes. Definitely a great tractor for getting around raking. We use this thing for everything. Good starting tractor.
All right, on to the other shed. So yeah, that's my father's Oliver. Don't mistake that for the tractor I made some videos about a long time ago. That was a 1550 Oliver.
Same age, just one size smaller, but the chassis is the same size.
Yep.
All the framing is the same, it's a little smaller motor.
And I use that to plow snow, but I ended up selling it. I didn't need it anymore.
So the 686, probably about as nice as you're ever gonna find them. And I found this over by St. Cloud, way on the other side of the cities for us. It was quite a drive. And I always wanted one because I knew this tractor would fit under my corn picker. And being it was a diesel, I seen it in the paper, and I told the guy, it better be nice, because I don't, you know, if I'm gonna drive that far, I wanna see a nice tractor that I could very possibly buy. So anyway, everything was pretty decent on it. We ended up buying it. When I got it home, I noticed that the rims, they used to have fluid in them. They were getting kind of rusty, and if we're gonna put a picker on this, long story short, we ended up replacing the rims, tires and tubes. But it didn't have any weights on it, but I had some extra weights from my 1066, so we were able to add those with it. And 3-point hitch it came with it. To get them this nice is pretty rare. I think somebody's asked before, I think this is it's what they call the 312. My dad had a 656 gas. And it's, you know, otherwise cosmetically it's all about the same. There's a little smaller platform in here, and then of course the gas motor didn't stick out past the framing, but the chassis is all the same. And it had 15.5s, these are 16.9s, I think. Yeah, 69.38s. His had 15.5, but you were a little lower to the ground, is all. A little smaller wheel. And the brakes were completely shot. I could barely stop on a dead level, and I thought, we are not going anywhere without redoing all them brakes. So that was one thing we did right away. And then we filled the tires full of this product they call Rim Guard, which is like a beet juice. And it's very friendly to the environment and the tractor. It has no acidity to it at all, like that calcium chloride did. So since we had everything already replaced and new, we weren't gonna go back to putting that stuff in if we didn't need to. And that is the weight by far. Keeps you very well planted. You want a good stable machine. Wears the tires fast, a lot of weight, but.
Yeah, so as my father was saying, this is what he uses for the corn picker. And for those of you wondering what he used before, he used that 1650 before that you just seen.
So the 7405, my first four-wheel drive, bought it brand new in 99. I believe this is a 98. It had only like 120 hours on it, which I think what they said it was is they borrowed it out to somebody for a TMR tractor while theirs was getting repaired. I am not a John Deere guy originally, and we stumbled across this and I thought, well, let's drive it. And you know, like a lot of things, you just kind of think, oh wow, that's the real deal. And we stewed on it for a while and eventually bought it. Now the 05s, they made three different ones. I think there's a 64 and then a 66 and then a 74. 05, they're all 05s. And they called this the Advantage series, which was more economical. They had a smaller hydraulic pump than, so it's the same chassis as the 10 series, except a smaller hydraulic pump, same motor, 105 horse, power quad transmission. The dash is more of a basic dash. You don't have a big adjustable air seat or any of that stuff. Your steering wheel's pretty much your standard stuff. But the biggest difference was the hydraulics, which still beat anything I had up till then. My 1066, this is probably double. And it came with bias tires. And the other thing was this rack and pinion. This is the old style hub they used, which, let's face it, doesn't make any difference. They never had any problem with those as far as I know. And the axles actually came out to here. I ended up cutting them off afterwards so we weren't hooking gates and stuff with them. By far, this is our favorite one, our all-around tractor. Our unloading our chopper boxes, all our feed moving, all my summer manure hauling. This is a real get-around tractor. I put this here rail on both sides just for a handle. Otherwise, they only had this little plastic one here. A courtesy light for the, now that was one thing, that was a real plus, that courtesy light. At night, you wouldn't see, if you weren't familiar with this tractor, you wouldn't know what you were doing. Now this horn, I was over in a dealer in Hickston looking for some parts for my Kiwani elevator and I think some corn picker parts, and this was laying there. And this apparently is out of an old school bus, you know? So, I don't even know why I picked it up. It was all rusty, but it was just kind of the shape of it. But I polished this all up and I rigged this up here, so it's a little get your attention. Anyway, that's really what it amounts to. They didn't come with front fenders, that was an option. They didn't come with the right-hand step, that was an option that we put on. And the weights, we bought this loader later on to fit this tractor, which we do use for certain things. It's awful big and clumsy, but it's certainly will go way further than your skid steer when it comes to lifting and pushing stuff. So in a 7510, and the interesting thing I've noticed with the 10 series, especially in the last 6-8 years, you do not see these for sale anywhere. Whether it's a 74, I think they came in a 74 to 75 to 76, 77, and a 78 10. And they're called the 7000 series. And the 72 and the 74 and the 75 had the same frame, except the motor and injection pumps and the wheel sizes and stuff like that. And the same cab. This one only came with the cab. Now I bought this brand new back in, I think this is an 02. And in May of 03, we bought this exactly 200 miles from where we live here. It was on a dealer, it had 500 hours on it. It was a release return, so it still had a year's worth of warranty. Power quad transmission, and it's kind of got the Cadillac cab where just about everything that they put in them at that time is in this one. Like you can see here on the rims, there's 3 holes instead of most of them we had 2. And then a lot bigger axle, and they were kind of put together more for the loader tractors really. And I think they just built a few things heavier so it handled that weight of that loader. But we haul manure with this one all winter. We cut hay with it all summer. That's more where this one gets tied up on the hay. We ended up adding some LED lighting to it. When one of the lights or something went wrong, we ended up just switching up to that right away. But yeah, we got the doors on both sides, and I wouldn't trade it for nothing. These tractors, I mean, the value, they're worth way more than they were when they were new. and we're using them. And I think there's like just a little over 4,000 hours on this one. Well, as far as any problems we had, nothing major. The air seat that I don't even know what they call it, that balloon in the air seat started losing air, and then every other day you're pumping it up from completely flat, and that got really kind of more of a pet peeve than anything. But other than that, I don't remember having really any serious problems with this tractor. We still got the original tires on it yet, which again, I talked about radial tires wearing very well compared to those bias. On my 7405, that's the third set on that tractor already. But that's a way cheaper tire too. These are very expensive. I'd hate to even price them today. One thing I've noticed too is there was an American front end. This is what they call a German front end. And my 7405's got that too. And a way to easily tell that is the shape of the axle. And as far as which one's better, you know, I couldn't tell you. They've been good to us. But what you pretty much see on this one came with it.
Now it's time to talk about the big horse on the farm.
7810. I always wanted one. They were about $10,000 more than the 75 or the 74. The interesting thing is the cab on the 78 is the exact same cab as on the 75 and the 74. You might have a few extra little goodies added inside, but it's pretty much, you go around with a tape measure, everything's the same. I bought this tractor new in 2014. Milk was very high, cattle were very high. I mean, we thought we're gonna update with something, we're gonna get something. I called a guy that dealt with these good used ones, and he used to own the John Deere implement over in Grant, Wisconsin. And then now he sells good used machinery. So he knew all the ins and outs of these tractors. He sold these tractors brand new back in the day. So this is a 99, and it had 2,000 hours on it. Well, first of all, I called him, and he had one there, but it was sold already, but it was still there. So we went there anyway to look at it, because I never really seen one up close. But anyway, then he said he'll find one. So then he calls me up maybe a week or so later, and he said he found one. It's down in Ohio. And he's got guys that know tractors, and when they say they're good, they're good. I said, bring it up here. If it's as nice as you say, we'll be seriously thinking of buying it. I walked into a shop, and I took one walk around it. I knew I was bringing this tractor home. He told me it was $90,000 for this tractor. That was back in 2014. And then after we agreed we'd take it and sat down to do the paperwork, he told me, you know, he said, I sold these brand new. And he said they were $69,000 brand new back in 99. And it had, we got the duals with it, and the weights and everything you see on it came with it. The front tires were replaced new, but the backs are still original, which are all pretty good yet. I thought that was kind of crazy. We're paying $90,000 for a tractor that's 15 years old. And on Machine Repeat, so out of the kicks of it, I got on YouTube, you look it up on Machine Repeat, they're selling a 7810 down in Iowa, somewhere in Iowa. It came out of Wisconsin originally. It just got just under 1,000 hours on it. That was just last fall. It brought $170,000. And it's probably in the exact same shape as this one. This is just a few more hours on it. But anyway, it's just crazy when you think about it. These tractors are gaining value, and we're using them all the time. So anyway, this has got the American front end on it. We got 18.442s on the back. The other one's got 38s. Axle mount duals instead of clamp on. The other ones I put clamp on duals on. The neatest thing with these tractors yet is like this past fall. I think the fan belt broke or something for us, and we were chopping hay. We had to switch tractors. Now, between the drawbar, the PTO, our hydraulic setups, all our electrical in the cab, everything's in exactly the same place. My chopper, my baler, along with some other machines, everything matches up the same. So the way all our hitches are designed on or set up on our implements, I can use either one of these three John Deeres, and that's the neatest part. But the biggest difference with this one is right here. You got about, this cab is jacked up 5 inches higher off the chassis, got a little bit bigger framing. I think this tractor's maybe 4 or 5 inches longer than the other one. And you got a little bit more room under the fender here. There we got 2,800, almost 2,900 hours, which still is nothing. These tractors, I've seen them with 10,000 hours on in there. This tractor is about as nice as you're gonna find them, and it's not really cleaned up right now. It's pretty dusty because it's been sitting in our back shed. We just drove it up to get a better look at it today. You know, you're wondering, okay, went from international You know, my dad was all international. And back in the day, everybody, you know, the Allis Chalmers guy stayed Allis Chalmers, the International stayed Allis International, and John Deere guy, you know, they all had their goods and bads. And we just, you know, like I said, with the 7405, we kind of stumbled across getting that. And it's always easier if you kind of stay with the same, because everything mixes and matches. You get to know these tractors. If I started with a different brand, I'd have to learn all over again. And we don't have nothing against one or the other. I mean, the one thing about the green ones is they hold their value. And I don't want to talk anything under anybody else's color down, but I know the guy I bought this tractor from, he told me there was I think it was a Versatile with only 1,000 hours on it. I think it was over 200 horse, and it was for a lot less money. But again, I had a lot of tractor. I'm not going to say it was good, bad, or whatever, but it's just...
And I want to add to that too, working off the farm as well. I think a lot of it is serviceability and dealers that are close to you, and you know what your neighbor has, and yeah, what you're used to. A lot of that is a big part of it, being able to get parts when you need them, you know, versus if we say went like the AGCO route. There's not a lot of AGCO dealers close to us, so that'd be a bit harder for us, you know, where we have a lot of John Deere dealerships around, so it's a bit easier to get parts, and if you needed service, you could get it, things like that.
And I've found with updating different machines, so we like the chopper, went from New Holland to Gale. I had to learn it all over again. And it wasn't that it was that much better or anything. It's just, I think once you get on something and you learn it well, and like you said, you get to know the people that you got to deal with, it's, you know, try to keep it simple, stick with it. But we're happy with them. I mean, the 4-wheel drives on this farm at these hills, it makes you kind of wonder how we got by without them, but I realized everything just moved a lot slower. And I think the bigger thing with farming today is the equipment's getting so big that less people can get more done, but the bigger pile of everything we produce becomes worth less. So if everybody still had to farm with those 2-wheel drive smaller tractors, I think we would see some different prices, but we wouldn't be able to produce it as fast. It'd still end up being about the same at the end of the day.
All right, so we'll wrap up the video. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. Yeah, leave a comment down below, you Farmall guys, when it comes to restoring those 2 tractors we started off with. Maybe give him a little grief in the comments. Maybe he'll get into finishing that M. I also wanted to say that if you guys enjoyed it and you wanted to see the rest of our equipment, also leave a comment about that if that's something you'd be interested in. But yeah, like we said, thanks for watching. We appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next video.